You're so good at it though, Rachel.
Oh, yes, I'm so good. Okay, I'll do it.
But before next meeting, we will do this. We'll determine who's doing it before the meeting. That was a great
Alright.
idea, but I didn't really worry about it for this one because it's just one.
But,
Okay, so we're live to the public and streaming, but we probably should wait until 7:30 before we officially start, Wade. So I
Yes,
see we have some guests in the audience, Bridie, Carrie, and Rebecca. So that's great. And we'll just hang out until 7:30.
yeah, so to the members of the public who are joining us, we do wait until 7:30 just to make sure that everybody who wants to join us has an opportunity to do so. So we will not start before 7:30.
Talk about the beautiful weather we had today. Like, I think the sun was out for the middle of the day.
Is
It was
that what was
awesome.
in the sky?
Very
I
nice.
couldn't figure out what that bright light was in the sky.
Oh, I know.
Hey, Wade, Rebecca or Becky, she's the architect for the applicant, just for your information.
Okay, Rebecca Pantuso.
Yeah.
I had to dig my sunglasses out today. I had to drive down to Akron. I had to dig my sunglasses out before I left.
That's a nice feeling, wasn't it?
Yeah, it took me like 30
Hope it
minutes
happens
to-
again sometime soon.
Took me a while to figure out where I put them in my car. They were like buried way down in the center console.
So I don't know if I missed it earlier. So Bridie is here instead of Dale,
Yes,
correct? Okay.
Right. I almost got to deliver the oath myself. I was very excited, but I think they worried that I couldn't figure it out, so they had to bring in the experts.
It's easier with more lawyers there because you just point at the other one if you don't know.
Right. Christy, are you still out there?
Yes, I'm still here.
So are you going to kick us off when we do hit 7:30? I don't just launch into it.
I
do
will, right. I just need to hit the record button and I'll let you know when I do that.
Bridie, we cannot hear you. You just.
Oh, you know what?
chatted us.
Actually, I'm sorry. I forgot that Bridie's in for Dale, so I will. Get that set up.
Hello.
Hi, Bridie.
Hello,
How are
welcome. Thanks for attending tonight.
you? No problem. No problem.
But Bridie, you easily win the nicest background there. Looks like a very nice room.
Thanks. Actually, I was looking at it. And you know what? I think that's a picture of the Republican past presidents right behind me, and it includes Trump. And so I'm sorry if it offends any of you.
You just put a cloth over it,
Well,
I
you
was
please.
just
shouldn't have
saying,
said
maybe I
anything
will.
because it's kind of hard to see that from here.
Okay, good. It's hardly a
Not
joke,
a
I
joke.
promise. Ugh.
Wade, it is 7:30 and we're recording. You're welcome to start the meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Christy. So good evening, everybody. My name is Wade Frick. You have stumbled into the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for the Village of Chagrin Falls. Today is February 23rd, 2021. For those of you who might not have joined us before, thank you very much for being here. We try to run, even though we're virtual, the same kind of meeting we would run if we were in person. What I call informally formal. We want everybody who's out there who wants to speak will have a chance to speak. We do follow a format where I will ask Rob to give us sort of the background on why we're here. I'll then ask the applicant to make a presentation. We'll then open the mics, if you will, for anybody who'd like to speak either in favor of or against the proposal before us. Throughout all this, the board members will ask questions. We do still take oath of everyone who's testifying. So Bridie will fill in, who works with our law director, Dale Markowitz, will administer the oath to everyone who speaks before you speak and give us testimony. And I think that's it. We will, again, we have just one matter before us tonight. And we'll launch into that quickly. We also, at the end of all of the taking of the testimony, we will offer a motion in the affirmative and then vote yes or no on that motion. So, by the way, I would ask that you state your name for us for the record. We do produce a written record just as we would in a live meeting. So it's important that we don't talk over one another and we identify who's speaking. So that would be helpful as well. All that being said, again, we just have the one item before us, which is the application of Jim and Leah Dustin, 289 North Street. Rob, can you please give us the background on why we're here on this one?
Sure. Christy, could you enable my screen sharing, please? Christy? Are you there?
Yes, I'm doing so now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay. And I've got all the project documents here so we can zoom in as needed.
Okay.
This application is from Jim and Leah Dustin, 289 North Street, permanent parcel number 931-06-004. This residential property is located in the R160 zoning district. The applicant is proposing to install a generator for the home outside of the structure. Section 1125-04F1 of the Village Code requires that generators shall be located at the side or the rear of the dwelling in compliance with the setback requirements of the main building. The setback requirements in the R160 zoning district for the rear of the home is 40 feet from the rear property line, meaning that the generator would have to be outside of that setback distance or within the setback distance. They're proposing to install the generator, which is a 60 kW generator, 6 feet from the rear property line. So they would require a variance of 34 feet to accommodate their request. The site plan before you here shows the rear of the property, shows the existing house and patio and that area, the backyard, and then the proposed generator in the back left southwest corner of the lot. And that's what we have before us.
Okay, so it's a single setback issue.
Mhm. They do meet
All right.
the side yard setback. They just do not meet the rear yard setback.
I'm sorry, say that again. They meet the side
They
yard?
meet the side yard setback. So distance to the side yard is, they do meet that requirement. It's just the distance to the rear yard.
And the rear is 50,
40 feet,
40.
40. Yep. And you can see where my cursor is, this is the 40-foot line from the rear line up to that.
Okay, all right. So any questions for Rob before we dive in from the board? Okay, who is presenting that on behalf?
Sorry, I have a quick question. I just want to understand, is a generator considered an accessory structure? What,
Well, it's considered, it has its own code section in 1125-04
I see.
under generator. So there's specific requirements for placement and use of the generator.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Becky Pantuso is present to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, Becky, then I guess you're up for a presentation or questions or whatever you begin. I guess first you need to be sworn in. So Bridie, if you could please swear Becky in.
Sure. Can you raise your right hand?
Yep.
Do you affirm or swear that you will tell the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
So
First and last name for the record, please.
Rebecca Pantuso.
Thank you.
So yeah, Rob gave you a good highlight of what we're asking here for. It is interesting to me that generators are not considered accessory structures. If it were, we wouldn't need to be here right now, but they're not, so we're here. Ideally, we want to, I would think, keep generators as far away from the homes as possible, including not only us, but, you know, the neighbors as well. So albeit it, you know, is hard to say it's not a substantial variance, I believe that it is a kind of common sense. It makes sense at the back of the yard. I'm not totally sure why it wouldn't want to be at the back of the yard. It's better hidden, it's better sound insulated. Reflecting on the sound ordinance, although it's a large generator, you know, a whole house generator, because we are constantly losing power now. It really is quiet, more quiet than your typical portable generator that I'm sure we're all hearing around town. So it's insulated in a box. We're putting all sorts of vegetation around it to conceal it. And it appears that Beverly Franklin is chatting in favor of it.
Beverly is voting multiple times in favor, so
Well, she's the one, if anybody is affected, it would be her. So you know, again, just
don't worry, Beverly, we will get to you. I promise you. We will acknowledge your votes and your opinion. So thank you, but we'll get to you. Okay, I'm sorry, Becky, please go ahead.
No, that's okay. So we're asking to treat it more as an accessory structure than the main residence by placing it in the back of the yard, and we'll put full vegetation around it to conceal it. And in terms of sound, it's I think 57 decibels, which your average generator is 70. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I have to confess, I'm a neophyte when it comes to generators. My understanding is they do generate a fair amount of, I mean, do they run on a regular basis? Do they, when is the noise? When do they make their noise?
So they do turn on once a week just to keep it active, I guess.
Right.
And that can be set for any time of day. My neighbors have one and it's set for Monday at noon, so it doesn't bother anybody sleeping or.
Is it louder than an air conditioning unit, or what kind of noise does it generate?
You know, I would say it's a little bit louder than an air conditioner, but similar. So
and it runs for what period of time? When your neighbors comes on at noon, how long does it run?
I think 20 minutes.
So once a week for 20 minutes?
It runs, and then obviously if you lose power, it's nonstop.
Right. But when you're not losing power, it's once a week for about 20 minutes. Is that what this unit will do?
Yeah, and I don't know the exact answer on that. That's my neighbors. I believe they're probably all similar, but I shouldn't say what I don't know.
Sure. No, you know more than I do, so that's why I'm just poking. So why can't the unit go closer to the house?
I mean, it does have some sound, so why not put it in the back of the property? You know, they're gonna have to work around it. So, you know, if it's sound wise of any disturbance, you know, I feel like maybe I'm being a good neighbor by putting it in the back of the property.
So can I ask a couple of questions about the property?
Sure.
So what's the service coming into that house? Is it 100 amp, 200 amp, 300 amp, 400 amp service?
I believe that it's being upgraded to 4, but I don't know that.
What's the need for the 60 kilowatt hour generator? I mean, that's twice the size of, I mean, that's 250 amps that you're producing on a backup source. I mean, that's running an air conditioner, a dryer, an electric stove, all at once.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, an electric car charger, that's running everything at once. And that's probably still overkill for something of that size. So I think the real reason you want to cram it into the back is you're putting such a huge generator in for maybe 200 amps at peak operating power.
So if you have the means to run your entire house, it's, you know, who's to say you can't do that? It's a high performance insulated unit, so you're getting less sound. I mean, I don't know, if somebody has the need and want to have the whole house unaffected by, you know, our monthly storms now, are we in a position to say you can't?
What hardship are they getting by having a 60,000 watt versus a 40,000 watt?
If they can't use their equipment or operate in their daily routine without it, you know, the size isn't going to change drastically. If they're trying to run the things that they want to run, you know, you're looking at a decent sized generator.
I guess,
And also, if I can comment on that a little bit, I don't think the sound, I mean, if it's the sound that we're worried about, the smaller generators, 'cause I was concerned about this bigger generator too, but the smaller generators, my limited research, because I looked into this in the past, are louder. And they do say they're the equivalent of a air conditioner, which is actually, again, this is my limited research that I did years ago, and I just looked it up before this meeting, and it was more like 68 decibels. So I don't think the size of the generator is gonna change the sound, for what that's worth.
I mean, that's the one reason why I think that it's supposed to be so close to the house, though, is it's a sound requirement. So if it's going to annoy anybody, it should annoy you as the homeowner because you've made the decision to install it. So, I mean, that's
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
and that's my opinion on it. So you're trying to cram it as far away from, you know, you as possible so that you don't have to, you get all the benefits, but you don't have any of the trade-off.
Yeah, well, if I move it closer to me, I'm also moving it closer to my neighbor. And I mean, if I'm going to pay, it's costing more money to put it in the back of the lot. If I'm going to pay so that both myself and my neighbor can have a better life, I mean, I think that's a good thing. It is more quiet. If you want, I mean, this generator is a hot topic. They're going in everywhere. I just listened to one at Waite Hill where that board actually said to put it as far away as possible because they have generators and they know how loud they are. Now, in this case, you know, what's the downfall, I guess, of putting it in the back of the lot?
I mean, here's my issue, Becky, and I support, I mean, I think the development you're doing is beautiful. I think the house is beautiful. The challenge for me, in my humble opinion,
Sure,
is we're dealing with a code that someone else wrote and we're supposed to interpret it. And it says air conditioners and generators should be by the house and should have setback coverage. And for us to grant something that is different, we have to go into the practical difficulty analysis. So for instance, when we had solar panels recently, whoever wrote it for the village wrote it, and it's not for us to say good, bad, or ugly. The language says solar panels go on the roof. And in that particular case, someone said, I don't want them on the roof. I want them way in my backyard. And the reason I want them in my backyard is because I'm going to have to gut my ceiling. I'm going to have to take down trees, or my roof. I'm going to have to take down trees. I have to do all this stuff. And I happen to have the rare piece of property where it could go way in the back and no one's going to see it. So, and that was a close call. Matter of fact, that one got appealed to council. Or no, it didn't get appealed to council. It did not get appealed to council, but it was a close call. So the issue that some of us may be wrestling with, or at least I'm wrestling with, is I want to be supportive. I want to do whatever I can to help. And I like the fact that a neighbor is chiming in saying, yeah, I mean, I want to support them, put it far away and shield it. But yet I'm looking at a code that says just the opposite. It says air conditioning units and generators go next to your house and they get screened. And so I'm just trying to, in my mind, think, well, what's unique about this property? What's unique? Is there something here that makes this unique? Because if not, you know, we could conceivably have everyone now saying, well, I want my air conditioner to be on my back property. I'll put a cluster of trees around it or bushes, but it'll be away from my house so I don't have to deal with it. So that's all. That's what I'm wrestling with, is how can I help? How can I see a practical difficulty when the code, you know, squarely says you got to put it next to the house? So if you can help me with that, I'd love to hear, you know, I'd love to hear more. And I'm still thinking about it. Believe me, I'm not, but that's just my knee-jerk reaction.
I'll ask another, maybe a different kind of question or comment, I guess. I work for a company that builds apartments all over the country. And in asking the construction, you know, experienced people, I mean, generators typically go near the electrical panel so that you can hook it up to the house. The reason why I think you made a comment, like they're paying more money to pull it away, is because now they have to dig, I guess, to attach this generator to where the electrical will come in the house to hook up, you know, to run the house. And it does seem weird that they would want to do that. It is not a typical placement for a generator. Best practice and common install is near the house, near the electrical panel where it comes into the house to hook it up. Because when you pull it away, you run the risk then of another point of failure. You know, should there be issues with weather and yard and storms and all this other stuff? I mean, there could be other reasons we lose power, but the code was written to have a 50-foot setback because you're not supposed to put generators that far away from the house. It just, it's a little bit weird. I mean, they can
Also,
put it
on
where
that, you're losing.
I tend to disagree. I think it's just a matter of, do you have the means or not? You know, obviously, if we're doing a portable generator, it has to be right next to the house because the cord is only so long, and you know, you're trying to get as close as you can to the panel. If you're,
I can buy that generator extension cord, you know, that 4-gauge cord in a 1,000-foot roll, and move my portable generator as far away from my house as I possibly want. It really comes down to V equals, you know, it's Ohm's law. It's as the farther you go, the resistance goes up in the cable, which means you're going to lose efficiency in your generator. So that's one of the reasons why you want to put it so close to your house.
and if you go down Shaker or South Park, you're going to see the big generators at the very back of their lot. I mean, they're not right up against the house. They're put in the very back, and they're, you know, way bigger than they are today.
Do you know, Becky, if Shaker has a code that says the generators should be placed in the rear or side of the building with meeting the setback requirements?
You know, I don't know that, Wade, but I know that from projects that I've worked on that they are, you know, in remote locations. I just worked on a house on South Park, and I would say it was at least 75 feet from the house, you know, and I think it's indicative of wealth, I guess. You know, those are big mansions. People had the means and they put it far away because do I want to sit in my backyard and listen to even an air conditioning unit if I don't have to? I mean, if we could move our air conditioners away, wouldn't we want to, if they're not disturbing somebody?
But I still have to look at the code, right? And the code doesn't tell me to do that. The code says put it next to your house. I'm
trying to, and I guess I need to understand why that code was written that way. I mean, there's no,
Yeah, unfortunately that, I mean, I don't know. And I mean, I'm given the code. They say here, this is your document and you use that to interpret things before you. And, there's a section that says practical difficulties with the tests that we have to meet. There has to be something unique about the property. Will the essential character of the neighborhood change? There's all, the tests that we go through. So that's all. I'm just, again, if I subjectively said, I love the work that you do. I love the house. It's beautiful. I'm sure it's going to be first grade landscaping. It'll be, I mean, top notch landscaping. I don't mean first grade, but it'll be beautiful. I get all of that. I'm just concerned about, well, what's the practical difficulty other than I want it? And that's my concern. And, part of what we do in this is, there's going to be lots of generator requests, I think, coming before us. And if we just say, well, whoever wants one gets one, I don't know. I mean, Andrew's the council rep. Maybe council, maybe they go back and say, well, do we really want generators to be jammed in the house, or can we put them in as far away as possible? I don't know, but that's not for us to do, unfortunately. So I'm still wrestling with it. I still have an open mind, and I appreciate that there's a neighbor on here who's going to say, yes, please get it as far away from all of us as possible. I get that. I'm still wrestling with it though. And I see, and Beverly's chomping at the bit, but we'll get to you in a second. But anyhow, that's just what I'm thinking in my thought process.
can disturbance to neighbors be considered a practical difficulty?
No, the practical difficulty has to be for the property owner, him or herself. Now, I guess if you're going to say, well, the practical difficulty is I'm going to have too much noise by my house, then the same would exist, I assume, for air conditioners and on all generators. In which case, the language of the code is fails on its face. All right, if it's unsightly and loud to me, I don't know that, I've never heard of that practical difficulty. Of that being a practical difficulty. But again, I'm open to any, thought people want to put into it. Other questions, comments from the board? Any other issues?
Yeah, I guess I was concerned about the property behind this property. Rob, is that owned by Riverwalk, like an association? Or is that
association property for the Falls Walk?
Or Falls Walk?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question in my mind that this is a perfect site to move a generator off and get it away from everybody. You've got nothing behind you that's going to be developed. It's going to be farther away from everybody's houses. I get all that. This is a great spot if you're going to do it. I just look at this and say, there's a difference between I want it and it's a practical difficulty in my mind that I wrestle with.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions, and Becky, I appreciate the back and forth. I don't know, I didn't want to cut you off if you had further thought or further comments that you wanted to make.
No, do we open it up to neighbors and then talk, or?
Well, first, I just want to make sure as I said, I wanted you to get everything out that you wanted to say, and you're certainly not foreclosed from speaking further, but I didn't want to cut you off to begin with. And then I'll see if there are any other board questions, and then we will open it up for others to speak.
Hey,
Is there any way to look at this as, a unique setting where the location, again, it's not a practical difficulty, but if you're looking at the spirit and intent of the code, and I know that's not really, that's a more global view, that because of the location proximate to open space that's not going to be developed, that it's a unique, circumstance. I'm just trying to sort of grab at straws there.
Wait, can I say something?
Lisa, I think that, I mean, it is possible. I mean, as you well know, we have the 8 factors we look at, and any
Right.
one of them can be dispositive. We don't have to find all 8, and you
Right.
don't have to find 2 of 8 or whatever. So, I mean, you've got staring at you whether the variance is substantial, which cuts, one way, and then you've got essential character will be, essential neighbor
That
character
would
of the
go the other
neighborhood.
way, right?
Can be obviated through a means other than the variance. I mean, you do have factors that, you can place whatever value you want on them. And I do think, a lot of people worry that our decisions are precedential. Every piece of property in this village is different, right? So,
Right,
the solar panel
right,
issue went one way because it was a unique set of property. But there, the owner testified that, they had to change their entire roof and take trees out.
right.
So,
Wade, can I say something?
Harry, yes.
Yeah. One thing I was talking to the administrator about was noise. And I was wondering if Becky knows what the noise difference, the decibel level is between a 60,000 kW generator and, let's say, a 32 kW generator. Typically 32 kWs are what are installed in residential whole house generators today. This is probably the biggest generator that we've seen so far. And there's got to be a noise decibel difference between the two.
Yeah, and it's actually less. So this thing is encased in, a sound insulated box, basically. It's 57 decibels. If you Google, what's your average generator decibels, it ranges between 60 and 80.
Okay.
So you're even though it's, has a large draw, it's less loud than its counterpart. I think if you scroll down, keep going. It's on the left-hand side at the bottom of the page. I believe one more page, maybe. Yeah. Sound enclosure features down a little bit more. There you go. 57 decibels during weekly exercise and 61 decibels during normal operation.
And do we know what a 32 kW generator is? That's typically what's installed.
Yeah, equal or louder, but by all means, are we able to go on the Google?
I'm checking into that now.
Again, the one that I looked at, and it wasn't even for my house, it was for work. It was like a 22 or 20 something kilowatt, and I did look that up, and it was 68. But again,
Okay.
that was about 2 years ago.
We made it a point to try to address sound and be a good neighbor.
That is obvious. Okay, other questions from the board? Okay, Christy, could you please open up the microphone for an orderly let people in one at a time? I don't know how many people we have who want to speak, but I want to make sure everyone gets a chance.
Sure. We have 3 people in attendance, and I think it's fair to let Beverly speak first, as she's indicated that she has a little bit to say. So Beverly, I'll promote you to a panelist, at which time we will swear you in. You'll state your name for the record, and then you can comment.
So first thing, we need to see Beverly so Bridie can administer the oath.
Yep. It might take her a minute to appear on screen. Beverly, if you haven't already, unmuted and start your camera, please. There she is.
I am. Hello, I apologize, it's the first time I participated.
Oh, gosh, no, we love
Such a
having you.
meeting.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to make sure you knew I was here, so that's
Yeah,
why.
please. So Beverly, before you begin, Bridie, can you swear Beverly in, please?
Sure. Can you raise your right hand? Do you affirm or swear that you will tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, Beverly, thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
Well, I'm just concerned about the noise issue. I know you're throwing out these noise levels. I don't know how does that compare to an air conditioner? I mean, how much louder is it? And for it to be running once a week, I have a nice deck and a hot tub in the back, and my proximity is very close. I'm a little concerned about the noise level.
Mhm.
Naturally thought that if it can be put at the end of the yard, that would be more pleasant for my family.
Okay. Yeah, and I note too that for whatever it's worth, it does say that even if this is by the house, it does still have to be screened. It has to have evergreen material around it. So so that happens no matter where it is. So just know that that's in our code as well. Are you Becky, is Beverly's house on the side that this would go on if it were to be placed next to the house? Or have you looked at where this would go if it were to go up along the house?
Yeah, it really can't. As you know, these North Street
Yeah,
properties are super narrow. We're, needling between the setbacks as it is. It can't go on the right side. So it's going to go on Beverly's side. I mean, there's no other option. And, if you don't want it in the back of the property, which, makes great sense to me and everyone around, it's going to go right on the side yard behind this patio and be a visual obstruction.
Rob, can you pull up the site plan, please?
Sure, hold on. I do want to, wait, can I address the sound output issue real quick?
Sure, yeah, please.
Information out. So the proposed 60 kW generator lists 57 decibels during weekly engine exercise and 61 decibels during normal operation. I looked up the Kohler 30 kilowatt generator online, and that is listed as, give me 1 second here. I just found the sound output during normal weekly exercise, 54 decibels, and at full speed operation, 62 decibels. And that's the 30 kW model.
And do you happen to know what what decibels an air conditioner produces?
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Can you Google search that quickly, or I
I'm
can, I
working
guess.
on that as we speak.
Okay. While Rob is looking, does anybody from the board have questions of Beverly or Becky? Further questions?
Just to out of curiosity, I have a question because Andrew.
This is Becky?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Because Andrew made a comment about hooking up an extension cord. I mean, if you guys don't want this generator in the back where it's going to affect no one, we can put a louder portable one right up against the house where it can echo. I mean, that's kind of the alternate, right?
And Wade, I have your answer when you're ready.
I mean, you could get a standard standby generator and put it closer to the house within the setbacks.
And it'll be louder. And if I put it up against the house, it's going to echo. I mean, right? If I put something loud up against a stone wall, it's going to reverberate.
But it just has to be within the setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And it also will be bounded by evergreen material, right?
Yeah, in any case.
Rob, your answer, air conditioning unit does
Yes.
what?
The, a normal quiet household air conditioner is within 50 to 60 decibels. Another site that I see references a range of 54 to 76 decibels is the average range for a home central air conditioning unit.
Okay.
So it's
So-
right in line with what we're looking at.
I'm sorry, I'm asking you to multitask. When you get a chance, if you can pull up the site plan. And Becky,
yes.
I'd be curious, if,
There we go.
and if you could blow it up a little bit. Becky, have you even thought about where a generator would go if you weren't granted a variance?
There's some pretty, it's going to be very difficult, but if you want to scroll down, down a little bit farther, it would go in that alcove, and I'm gonna look out at it from my dining room. I mean, there's low windows in the main space of the house. Yeah,
About this area here.
yep.
And it would go there because of the side yard setback, or why would it go there as opposed to further up along the house?
Because of the side yard setback.
Okay, then Rob, if you could scroll towards the backyard. So the 40-foot line is where? So could it not go in where those trees are, outside of the 40 feet? Yes, yeah, there's 40 feet. Is it conceivable to tuck it in and have the landscaping pop out around it there, in which case you don't need a variance?
Yeah, anything's conceivable. So we just did this, as you know, this garage. And this has got a nano wall at the lower level that I'm going to look out and see it if it's on the right side of the property, which might make a little bit more sense if I have to pull it forward. Because if you scroll down a little farther, you see the patio. I mean, that's it's really going to cut my yard in half. That's just what it comes down to. On a small lot that we're, spending a fair amount of money to improve. And then, common sense doesn't allow me to put this generator in the back where I can maximize my land. That's where we're at.
And Becky, why couldn't it go behind a detached garage?
Yep.
I'm going to look out at it. I mean, that's a fitness room down there below. I literally have a 15-foot door, at that lower level that I have to pull this thing inbound enough that I can screen, on my neighbor's side. And then of course I'm going to want to screen it on my side. It's surprising how much that's going to chew out of your yard. I mean, it just really is. It'll be louder and more of an eyesore, but if that's what you guys deem is the best path forward.
I just want to be clear. I don't intend, I mean, this is a beautiful piece of property. You're doing a wonderful project. And I don't think anybody's doing this to personally stick it to anybody or anything like that, or make a stupid decision. But again, I just come back to the village handed me a code that says generators should be located the side or rear of the building in compliance with setback. And if you want to make a variance to that, you have to show that, all these factors. And just saying, well, I want it because it'll look prettier there, or it'll be quieter there. I don't know if that constitutes
Well, yeah,
a reason
right.
for variance.
But our ordinances are drafted to be good neighbors. That's their intent, right? We're trying to protect the stock, the housing stock in the properties of Chagrin. So we create these ordinances that help guide people to be better neighbors. True? I mean, that's what zoning laws are created for. Here
Yeah,
I am trying to go above and beyond being a good neighbor, and it's not, you know, there's no reason or dispute that this is the better choice. But we're not voting now in terms of like what the overall zoning code's intent is.
Well, I don't know. I look at, I'm not that bright a person. I can read into the minds of who created this, the ordinance. And when somebody tells me that when the village says, you know, I want all generators and air conditioners next to the house, it's not for me to say, I think that person was a moron. I don't know, that somebody said that's what they want to do. That's
Well,
what we need to
yeah,
be
and
doing.
I'm not calling that person, I didn't even mean to insinuate that or calling that person a moron. I'm just saying, if we're talking about like, you know, I'm given this zoning code and that's the law that I have to follow, I'm just saying, well, the zoning code in a macro level is written to be a good neighbor, to protect the housing stock of Chagrin. Argue with me that this isn't being a better neighbor, and you know, who on here, there's other people on here, who on here thinks that this shouldn't happen? I mean, common sense wise.
Well, the part of the issue is every person who's ever appeared before us, and I've been doing this, I don't know, 20 years, I promise you, thinks they're a good neighbor and has wanted to do the right thing and create a beautiful new home. I mean, we've told people you can't build a cupola on top of your $2.5 million house, whatever it is, because it's aesthetically pleasing. It looks wonderful, but it doesn't fit. You have to show the Supreme Court of Ohio and the village tell us, here's the boxes they have to check. And unfortunately, there's not one that says because I want it. Now there is essential character of the neighborhood being changed. There is that element to it. So I mean, I think, you know, there's possibility that some of us could look at this and say, yeah, I think there's enough here and I'm going to grant it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just,
Well, and yeah, and I guess I'm taking it even further that the cupola is not allowed because it's a height restriction, right? I mean, it's blocking somebody's view. It's creating a you know, massing that's no longer pedestrian friendly if it's taller than 35 feet. I mean, that, like, you can talk your way through why that was written. I legitimately cannot understand why.
I do. In certain houses, not this one, the properties in Chagrin are fairly close together. And if you put it at the back of your property, that's right next to somebody's house. So you could see this either way, depending on where you live. But Becky's right. This is exactly why we have a BZA, is to say the code doesn't fit all circumstances. So let's, you know, look at this situation, and this is a good candidate for a variance, you know, and that's why we're here. So you're all saying the right things, and this is the right place to come and to say, hey, by putting it back there, we're being a better neighbor. The code isn't letting us be the best neighbor we can. And that's why we're here. And that's why the practical difficulty is it would be better for this neighborhood and this particular lot setup and the neighbor to spend the money and put it way back there, rather than right next to the house, which is more typically farther away from your neighbor. In this particular case, it is not, based on how the house is. That's exactly why we're here looking at this. So I think you're both right, and you're both following exactly, and that's why these committees exist. And I think Becky makes a valid point saying that this is the practical difficulty, is it doesn't make sense in this particular, yes, they could place it in the middle of that backyard where it says parcel 1. They could absolutely do that, but it doesn't really make sense. And so why not tuck it back behind the, you know, the vegetation and down the hill a little bit? It is a hill there, if I remember correctly. You know, there's a little bit of a slope and get it away from all these houses. It's a fair ask.
Well, and I want to be clear, I'm just being more argumentative than normal. I don't even know how I'm voting yet. I just want to make it clear. The question's been asked, why can't we have it? It isn't that just a better neighbor policy. And I think there's certainly more that we have to worry about than is it a good neighbor or not?
Right. I mean, I know we're talking also a lot about noise, and honestly, the new generators, first of all, this generator isn't running all day long, all the time. I know we feel like we lose power all the time because that's how it feels. But if you look at the data and the statistics, this is not very often. It's been the most often in the last 4 months, but this is not going to be running all day, every day, like an air conditioning unit does all summer long in our houses, okay? It does come on and test about once a week. I live next door to a house that has a gigantic generator. It is fine. The dog that barks across the street all day long and is unattended by terrible owners that barks in my window where my office is way more of a distraction than any generator is going to be in this town. And there's no setback for that dog. Okay. So I just want to let you know that this is not an old generator. It is new. And, again, I think a lot of the reasons for moving it, noise, it is a noise. Yes. But it also, it isn't that much of a noise. It's no more or less. And if we're in a disaster and it is running, nobody's going to care about the noise. They're going to be like, hey, can we borrow your refrigerator since you have one? So because all my meat from Costco just went bad. So anyway,
So Rachel, we don't know if you're voting yes or no either now.
I don't. That's the whole beauty of the BZAs. It's like a big surprise at the end.
Right.
But I
All right. Well, I don't want to get off track.
I just wanted to note that the arguments are fair. I agree with you. Like, the practical difficulty is the reality of it makes more sense to move it back there, period.
And that's what I was saying originally, is the practical difficulty relates to the way the lots are configured and what is the more, the less invasive way of doing this project.
Yeah, I mean, I said before, Lisa, I think there's enough there. You can make an argument.
Right.
Again,
I'm actually surprised that this larger generator seems to have no more decibel level than your average air conditioner. Those numbers are not hugely different.
Okay, well, Christy, can you see if anybody else outside from the outside is waiting who would like to speak?
Yes, there
Please.
is someone with a hand raised. Carrie, I will invite you into the conversation and we can swear you in.
Okay, Carrie, make sure your camera is on and you're unmuted. And when we see you, we can have Bridie give you the oath.
Okay.
I see Carrie's name. There you are.
Here we go. Sorry.
No problem. Bridie, if you could administer the oath, please.
Sure. Can you raise your right hand? Do you affirm or swear that everything you'll say is the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Carrie, the floor is yours.
Well, I just wanted to, thank Becky and her team for sort of educating us as neighbors on what was going on here. And then also just to quickly say, we keep kind of talking about like, just because he wants it, and that's not really a reason to give it to him. But I guess the reality of the situation in this case is he can have it. It's just, where is it going to go? And for us as neighbors, I'd just like to put in my 1 cent really, that I think the space that Becky and her team have selected makes the best sense for us in this community, as just kind of reiterating what the last comments were, because they have the nice luxury of having the space in the back, and we're not a typical back-to-back situation in this neighborhood. Just want to extend my support for where they have it located and for the variance, just for all the people in our neighborhood.
I appreciate it, Carrie. Any questions of Carrie? All right, Carrie, thank you.
You guys.
Christy, can you see if there's anybody else who would like to speak?
Yes. We have one more person in attendance. Dora, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand in the Zoom platform. If you're just observing, that's fine too. I see your hand and I will promote you to join the group. Thank you.
No problem.
And Alexa said no problem.
Laura, you're muted and we don't see you yet. You are not muted and we're about to see you, I think. No? There you are.
How's that?
Bridie, if you could please administer the oath for Dora.
Sure. Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that you will tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, Dora, the floor is yours.
Hi, I'm just joining on. I really reiterate what my neighbor said. So we are a few more houses down. We're on 315 North Street, same side as this property in question. So there's a walking trail behind all these homes. So I walk that frequently and, have a good visual understanding of where this would go. So really just wanted to pop on and say, I don't think it will bother us at all or really influence us at all. We also lived through a 4-day power outage earlier this year in November. It was quite impactful just in terms of, living through that and COVID layered on top of it, et cetera. We now have a portable generator that I never thought we would purchase, but we have one now. And I can say when it is silent in the community, during a power outage, you can hear a pin drop outside and you do hear other people's generators. Our neighbors across the street have one, you do hear that. So I think, the extent to which, Becky and her team have insulated this and taken all those extra precautions. I'm not a sound expert, but it really does sound to me like it makes practical sense to put it in the back of the property. So that's all, just, my 2 cents as well.
All right, Dora, thank you.
Yep.
Any questions for Dora from the board, for anyone on the board?
Wade, if I can talk, I don't have any questions for Dora, but thanks to all the neighbors, I guess, that, are coming and supporting this. I'm happy that nobody on the call is coming to say, don't do it. So we don't have anybody that's saying, don't do this. If, they've been notified, they have their chance right now. But Wade, I know you're, just being devil's advocate or talking through, they just want it. I don't think that's
overly dramatic in that use.
It is dramatic, and it's I don't want that to be the case. I mean, I think there are adverse implications of like Rachel said before. Sure, we can put this in the middle of the backyard. Is that going to be good for Chagrin? Is it going to be good for this property value? Is it going to be good for, the city as a whole? No. I mean, anything you can do to maximize these lots and make them as great as possible while being a good neighbor. I mean, I just go back to what zoning code is, what these laws are created for, to be a good neighbor. I'm being a better neighbor. I realize that we're asking to do this special thing, but I'm just really looking for what harm is it creating, or why does it need to go within these setbacks? I don't understand why it was written. If the code were written that it has to be treated like an accessory structure, which honestly it is, right? It's not a house. It's like an accessory. It's not even an accessory structure. It's an accessory unit. Like, why aren't we treating it as such? And if we were, we wouldn't even be here right now, And I just think, to your point earlier, every lot is different. I really genuinely believe there are not two lots in Chagrin that you could say are exactly the same. We have different neighbors, we have different backgrounds, we have different side variances. If somebody looked at this lot, an outsider, and said, where's the best place to put this generator? I bet you they'd say this, what we're presenting to you.
I guess, Becky, and again, I'm just, you're right, I'm being devil's advocate, and I don't mean to, and I certainly didn't mean to suggest that when I say because I want it, I use that a lot of times. I don't mean that in the sense that the property owner is wrong or doing something bad or anything else. My problem, what I wrestle with is if you hand me a code and it says all houses must be white, and then someone comes to me and says, I don't like white, and I don't like white, I'd rather have a blue house.
We'll go move to a different neighborhood. That makes sense to me. I mean, I'm a big fan of zoning codes. I actually believe them. And trust me, I think the reason I'm having such a visceral response to your because I want it is the exact reason why I hate coming to these things. Like, I really don't like coming and seeing you guys here. I really don't. I mean, truth be told, if I could avoid this, I would. In my heart of hearts, this is a better location. It makes better sense for the neighborhood. I have to come here and present this. And if my homeowner is willing to foot the bill to do it a better way, then I have to come here and present it. So I'll shut up, but.
well, I'm sorry to hear that you don't like to see us, Becky. We always look forward to seeing you. You're always very professional. You do great work. And we didn't mean to make this worse than a root canal for you, because I think part of it is we take our jobs maybe too seriously, and we try and follow the code and do the best we can. We've had this happen before where, believe me, we don't make decisions based on who we like or who we don't like or how pretty we think it is or not pretty it is. We're trying to follow the code as best we can. So I'm sorry, we try and run a clean, crisp meeting and not get into the minutia. So I apologize if you think that we're running a meeting that you don't appreciate or don't like attending. We appreciate what you're doing.
It's just stressful. It just gives me gray hairs. That's all.
It's stressful for us too, because this is a small town and we know the people that are building the houses, and and when someone calls me and says, I really want to do this, hey, I love you, you're a dear friend, but I got a code I got to follow. So, trust me, it's very stressful for us too, because, my own personal bias is if somebody has the means to build something beautiful, they should build something beautiful, and period. But then you give me the code and say, well, but here's the restriction, you can't build it higher than this and wider than that. And I think, well, I don't even agree with that, but that's what it says, and it's not my job to amend it. So that's what
I understand. I understand, and I sympathize with the role that you guys are placed in, and if I could understand the spirit intent behind this ordinance, I would love to know it, because in my mind's eye,
Come to a planning meeting one night.
All right. Okay. Well, any other questions? So I guess first, Christy, is there anybody else out there who wants to speak? Can you check and see?
Each person in attendance has had an opportunity to speak.
Okay.
Did we hear from Carrie?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So
thank you.
one final offer. Is there anybody else? If you could just check, Christy, anybody who has anything they want to say. We just want to make sure everyone gets to say what they want to say.
Okay, so if anyone has any additional comments that they'd like to make, please raise your hand in Zoom to identify you'd like to speak. I think we're clear, Wade.
Okay, anybody from the board with any further question? All right, who will be proposing the motion in the affirmative that we will be voting on?
Sorry, I will be doing it.
Okay, thanks, Rachel.
You're welcome. You guys can all buy me a beer later. Okay. Today, we'd like to propose a variance for approval for 289 North Street. It is a request for a variance to section 112504F1 regarding generators in area, yard, and height regulations. The setback requirement for a generator per code is 40 feet. And the owners of this resident would like to install a generator that is only 6 feet from the rear yard line and would create a 34-foot variance. The variance is being requested. It does seem substantial because it's practically 90% or so of the entire variance required. However, if looking at this property, the distance to create space between the generator and neighboring houses is actually improved by putting it farther back on the property rather than next to a house, which is a more standard install. The property owner is willing to invest additional money to get the generator moved far distance back from the house and in the back corner covered by greenery and other landscaping so as not to be seen, which will create more space for neighbors on both sides. And there happens to not be a neighbor in the back, as it is a common area of the neighborhood that rests behind the rear yard line. The generator is being purchased to create a failover for electrical issues happening throughout our area as of late and for future to safeguard the house. The essential character of the neighborhood, if the variance was not granted, would likely be impacted in the sense that the generator would be placed in an area that would not only hurt the image of the house, as you would be able to see it from all of the windows that exist near the house, as well as be impacting the neighbors closer by putting it close to the house. So the neighborhood would be negatively impacted by not allowing the variance to be placed to place the generator in the back of the property. The government services would not be impacted. In fact, it might be easier to get to if it needed servicing for any reason with the natural gas hookups. The owner did not purchase this property knowing they would need to do this. This was an additional request that's being made at current times. And the likelihood of putting this in a different, or the ability for them to put this in another area has been discussed at length. And again, it starts to impact the look and the feel of the property and the neighbors. And the intent of the code would not be supported by making them move it away from the edge of the yard, the way that these properties abut next to each other. These circumstances were not self-created as a result of the actions. Instead, they would like to enhance the effectiveness of the function of their house by adding this and willing to invest the additional funds to make this work the best way for not only their house, but also for their neighbors. And for those reasons, this variance is proposed.
For a second. Lisa, was that you?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, Rob, roll please.
Kramer.
I'm going to vote aye. I think the compelling issue here is the spirit and intent of the code and the fact that we have unique circumstances relative to this particular configuration of properties. I do think it's a substantial variance. I think the character of the neighborhood, as Rachel said in proposing the ordinance or the variance, is that this essential character of the neighborhood is improved by granting the variance, not reduced. And the property was not purchased with the intent to have to install a generator, but circumstances have changed. And there's certainly the homeowner could put the generator in a different location, but it would be detrimental to the neighbors. I believe that the ordinance was probably drafted to lessen impact on neighbors, but in this particular situation, following the code would increase the negative impact on neighbors. And so for all of those reasons, I vote that the variance be granted.
Rocky.
This is a really tough one. the steel blades line. But I'm gonna have to vote no. I think that this is substantial. I mean, you're looking at cramming it in the back of a lot. And I think it easily can be rectified by placing it within the setbacks. And I think that the variance is being self-created by wanting to put it in in the back of the yard.
Freshman Johnson.
I think if you look at history of how I support the code, I am always looking at materiality and setting precedents, and I get very cautious as we move forward, especially in areas where we're starting to see more of, like generators. I do think that this was thought through. The intent was to make it better, for sure, not to be selfish. And that's very obvious by Becky's presentation. And the way these houses are, this in particular makes sense to me to move it away. It doesn't make normal sense to put a generator so far away from a house, and it is very costly. But in this case, I think that the intent and spirit is supported, and that is what we are trying to do here, is to be better neighbors. And I do agree with that argument, and I'll vote aye for that alone.
Frick.
I similar thoughts to what Rachel said. When we had an earlier case on solar panels, it was the first time we've ever had a solar panel case, and the code was very clear: solar panels go on the roof, period. And I took that literally and made the same arguments I made here tonight to say I worry about when they give me a code, I can't think about why they did or whatever the words say they say. Now I voted in the minority in that case, and the majority voted largely because the uniqueness of the property. They could put it in the back. No neighbor objected. So I too worry about, when the code says black and white, I worry that it says black and white. I look at the reasons for granting variances, and I think this fails horribly on all but one. And the one to me is significant, though, the essential character of the neighborhood. And all the testimony before us was, we want this to go where they're proposing it. There's an unbuildable lot behind it. This is a unique piece of property. And I believe that the neighborhood argument should carry the day on this. So I vote yes, or aye, in favor of it for those reasons.
And Holgren.
I was kind of hoping I'd have a 2-2, so I finally get to decide. But
I can change my vote if you want me to.
Well, I'm going to vote aye for all the reasons stated in the motion, and exactly what you said, Wade. I think the one that wins the day is two of them: the essential character of the neighborhood and the spirit and intent behind the code. My biggest problem with this originally was the neighbors behind it. But I don't think that comes into play with this. It's an unbuildable lot. There will be no neighbors behind it. So I think the spirit and intent behind the code is still upheld, and I vote aye.
Okay, so what that means is the application has been approved 4-1. Council now has 15 days to consider an application of appeal. It takes 3 members of council to do so. If that's not done, you will receive notice that there was no appeal filed, and your variance will be granted. If council does have 3 members, and since Andrew is one of the council members, he voted no, I certainly don't want to put him on the spot or guess as to what he'll do. But if that happens, you'll get notice, and council will hear this all over again. So 15 days is the key point here. If no appeal is taken, then the grievance will, or the application will be granted. So you'll have to wait to hear from Rob as to final disposition, whether it happens within 15 days. Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anything else to come before us? I see nothing else in the agenda, but anything else, BZA?
Yeah, I think the next meeting is during spring break.
Ooh, that's correct.
Who's going on spring break?
Everybody but you.
I'm getting 4 tons of sand delivered. And we're gonna turn my front
You're
like
not supposed to be traveling. Come on, guys.
I'm just turning my computer off that week.
23rd,
I'm having
23rd.
a vacation.
That's right in the middle of of spring break, 22nd to 26th.
Correct.
pouring 4 tons of sand into my basement and gonna turn it into a beach.
Do you guys have a preference whether we go you want to just go the 30th?
Do we have any cases that have been submitted?
Not yet. We did have some older zoning reviews that have been out and ongoing for a while. They could always turn something in, but as of right now, we don't have any variance applications.
So if we get one though, do you want to go, can everyone do the 30th? The following Tuesday?
Sure.
Sure.
Yep.
Andrew, is that okay with you? You know,
I'm double checking because apparently I never moved my calendar onto my computer
And also, you're gonna be cleaning up that sand.
for months. I actually knew a fraternity in college that did something similar to that. It was probably a disaster.
Then you know it's a really bad idea.
Yeah. So I will be out. I will be busy that day on the 30th. Let me get back to you guys. To
what
make
about
sure that
29th?
the 29th would probably work better. But we should have.
Is that good for everybody else?
Yep.
It's the 5th Monday, so there's no conflicting meetings.
Yeah.
So why don't we all pencil the 29th, and Rob, if there's nothing to come before us, then we have no meeting. But if we do, let's make it the 29th, okay?
I'll probably be doing that one in a hotel room. So.
Okey doke.
Okay,
Sounds like a plan.
That works.
thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Meeting is
Thank you.
adjourned. Good night.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned at 8:43 PM.